When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Should Montreal Metro security get more power? Will it make them more accountable? One policing expert says it's a good idea. Alain Babineau joins me on the line, former RCMP officer who now works with the Center for Research Action on Race Relations. Alain, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Elliot.
So, listen, when I hear that we're thinking about giving the Metro security officers more power, I get a little uneasy because in my experience using public transit, using the Montreal Metro, I have to say I have more examples in my brain of racial profiling that I've seen in the Metro with those security guards than I have in my brain of stuff that I've witnessed firsthand on the street with regular police. So at the first time I hear we're going to give them more power, my initial gut reaction is, oh boy, this will not end well. This is a bad idea. Why do you think that, no, actually we need to look at this and this may actually play out as being a net positive?
Well, with greater power comes additional responsibilities, greater responsibilities, right? Right now, what you have is a group of officers that are, essentially security guards at the employ of the STM as a corporation, and so because of that, they only report to the chair of the STM and the group, a group of bureaucrats essentially. Now, by having these people, these STM officers, given the designation of special constables, then they will fall under the Police Ethics Commissioner's office, okay, and which provides independent oversight over their activities. So from my perspective, it's much better to have an independent, not perfect, but independent organizations to oversee their activities than to have some form of internal disciplinary body that comprised of people that are not necessarily trained in I mean, from an oversight standpoint, I don't see any drawbacks whatsoever.
So you would argue that, if we take the example, there was one man, I think it was last year, 2019, Giuliano Gray, and
Correct.
boy, he got beaten up by Metro security, right? So are you saying in that example, if we were to give them these special powers, at least those security guards, they would have to show up in front of a police ethics committee and answer for that? And right now, they don't have to.
Right.
What happens right now in that case when someone files a complaint? What happens right now, and how does it get better if they're given these powers?
Right. Two things. Number one, I'm very familiar with the Giuliano Gray case. It's a case that the car. We helped the young fellow to file complaints. But again, at that point, our hands were kind of limited in terms of type of complaint that we could file. We could only, write a letter of complaint to the chair and the mayor of the city of Montreal, but the chair of the STM. And, essentially we were told that the officers, and they came to that realization within about 24 hours. And by talking with the officers, they came to the conclusion that the officers had followed proper procedures. But that's silly.
Yeah.
In the case of the special, if they had been special constables, what would have happened is we would have filed a formal complaint directly with the Police Ethics Commissioner's office. That complaint would have been reviewed by him, the commissioner, an independent review. It would have more than likely, based on our experience, been sent out for investigations by an independent investigator, who would have conducted a thorough investigations and submitted the findings to the commissioner. Then, if the commissioner deemed that the officers had violated one of the, a section of the code of conduct for police and special constables in the province, peace officers, then it would have been referred. Those officers would have been cited before the committee, the police ethics committee, which is essentially a tribunal, where the police commissioner's office would have been prosecuting those officers. Okay, and then Mr. Gray would have been, coming in as a witness, essentially. But the prosecution, to use the term, for this particular case, would have been conducted by the commissioner's office. Now, none of that happened with a 24-hour turnaround conclusion by the director of the STM.
We're with we're with Alain Babineau, former RCMP officer, now works with the Center for Research Action on Race Relations. Alain, I guess the next question I have here is, does this change the training as well? Because to me, if you increase the accountability, okay, that's fine. Right. Maybe we'll get some resolution. But if the training is the same, if the manual is the same on how to handle these things, what really changes? So is there when you give these special powers, do you also get differences in training?
Well, not only do you get differences in training, but I would argue that you would get differences in terms of selection, the hiring process, the pay scale. A whole lot of HR components would have to be revisited, because the profile of someone to whom you're gonna essentially give a peace officer status, which means that the person can actually make an arrest, transport a prisoner. It is a different profile than with all due respect to security guards are doing, the job for which they've been hired. Yeah. But it comes with a totally different profile of people that we're looking for when you hire a peace officer.
Yeah, Alain, can you tell me, do you know what the difference is, so for a Metro security guard, what kind of schooling, training they need before they get that job compared to a police officer?
Yeah, I understand that right now they get, and I know I'm going to be, they get a certain number of weeks. I think it's 15 or 20 weeks at the Nicolette right now. This would definitely be increased, because now they're special constable, they're peace officers under the criminal code, and that comes with a much greater responsibility. Now, for instance, you see use this as an example. I mean, it's somewhat analogous, but you see the police in Kativik in the northern Quebec, band police, for instance, are police officers, are peace officers, but specifically trained and as having police officer powers and status within indigenous territories. And so here you would have, and again, it's not a question of arming, giving them firearms or additional weapons or so on. And so that's not the point. But the point is that these officers, these STM officers now would have the power, essentially the same power as a police officer in terms of being able to make an arrest. They're becoming full-fledged peace officers, as opposed to now where they can arrest, just like you and I, by the way, as civilians, but they must call the police forthwith and turn the person over to them.
Alain, we're out of time here, but at the end of the day, your argument here is that you will take those extra powers if it also means they can be held up accountable to an ethics board. That's the trade-off you say is a net positive.
100%, and I think it'll be much better for the community because there's going to be a much greater oversight.
Alain Babineau, former RCMP officer, now works with the Center for Research Action on Race Relations. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.